Here is the expanded script, designed to be roughly double the length of your original. I've deepened each chapter with more vivid storytelling, extended metaphors, and practical examples to make the emotional and financial journey of retirement planning feel immediate and personal, while keeping the language clear enough for anyone to understand. Imagine finishing a video game you have played for 40 years. 40 years of your life. You started as a beginner, not knowing the controls, just figuring things out as you went along. You played through every single level. Some levels were easy, some were brutally hard. You fought every boss. Some bosses you defeated on the first try, others took years to figure out. You survived every challenge life threw at you. You kept going when you wanted to quit. You kept showing up, day after day, year after year. Then finally, after 4 decades of effort, you reach the final screen. The game is over. You beat it. And the screen flickers for a moment before displaying your final results. And it says this: "Congratulations. You finished the game with only 2% health remaining. You survived. But barely. You made it to the end, but you have nothing left for anything else. No room for error. No margin for fun. Just enough to exist, not enough to live." That is what retirement looks like for millions of people around the world. After decades of work, after decades of stress, after decades of alarm clocks ringing before sunrise, after decades of meetings that could have been emails, after decades of responsibilities piling up higher and higher, they finally arrive at age 65. They cross the finish line. And when they look at what they have, they realize it's just enough to survive, not nearly enough to actually live. Today we are going to talk about something uncomfortable. Something emotional. Something incredibly important that most people avoid thinking about entirely. We are going to talk about why the average person retires with shockingly little money. And more importantly, we are going to talk about how the small daily decisions you make today, right now, this week, this month, quietly decide your entire future decades before you ever realize what is happening. By the end of this video, you won't just understand retirement math. You won't just learn about compound interest and savings rates and investment returns. You will understand something much deeper. You will understand how your everyday habits either build up your future self, protect them, give them options and freedom and peace, or how those same habits slowly, quietly, abandon your future self when they need you the most. Chapter 1. The moment nobody prepares you for. Picture this scene in your mind as clearly as you can. You are 65 years old. You have worked your entire adult life. You have paid taxes, raised kids, dealt with surprises, fixed broken things, and showed up every single day. Now you are sitting across from someone who is reviewing your financial life. Maybe it's a financial advisor. Maybe it's a banker. Maybe it's just a computer screen with all your accounts laid out in front of you. They open your accounts. They scroll through the numbers. They pause. They look at the screen for a moment longer than feels comfortable. And then they say something polite, something professional, something designed to soften the blow. They say, "You may need to be careful with your spending in retirement." But what they really mean is something much scarier. What they really mean is, you don't have enough. You worked your whole life, and it wasn't enough. And in that moment, retirement doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It doesn't feel like the reward you were promised. It doesn't feel like travel and relaxation and time with grandkids. It feels like math. Cold, unforgiving math. Can I stay in my home? Can I afford my medication as I get older? What happens if the roof leaks or the furnace breaks or the car dies? How long will my savings actually last if I live longer than average? What if I need help, expensive help, just to get through each day? This moment is not rare. It is not something that happens to only a few unlucky people who made terrible choices. This moment is normal. It is the reality for millions of retirees right now, and it will be the reality for millions more unless something changes. And that is the problem. That this moment of panic and stress and fear at the end of a long working life is considered normal. That we have accepted a system where so many people work so hard for so long and end up with so little. Chapter 2. The number that shocks people. Let's simplify the reality so it becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine two jars sitting on a table. Jar A represents what most people imagine retirement will look like. Jar B represents what retirement actually looks like for the average person. Most people imagine jar A completely full, overflowing. They picture retirement as a time of vacations and relaxation, of finally having the time to do everything they postponed while working. They imagine time with family, freedom from stress, waking up without an alarm clock, going to bed without worrying about tomorrow. They imagine jar A full of options. But for many people, jar B is much smaller, much emptier. The average person reaches retirement age with savings that look less like a comfortable future and more like a thin safety cushion. A small pillow between them and disaster. And when you try to spread that small cushion across 20 or 30 years of retirement, across decades of living expenses and healthcare costs and inflation, the truth becomes painfully clear. This isn't about luxury at all. This isn't about taking nice trips or enjoying fancy dinners. This is about survival. This is about hoping you have enough to make it to the end without running out. Kid analogy time. Imagine you are a kid again and someone tells you that for the rest of your life, you get exactly one juice box per day. One. That's it. You can drink it whenever you want, but once it's gone, there are no more until tomorrow. Now imagine you don't actually know how many days are left. You don't know if you have 20 years of days left or 30 years or even more. You just know you have a limited supply and an unknown future. That is what retirement feels like when you have limited savings. You sip carefully. You ration. You worry constantly about how much is left. You hope nothing unexpected happens that forces you to drink faster than you planned. You hope nothing spills. That is not the freedom people worked for. That is not the reward people dreamed about during all those years of early mornings and late nights and weekends sacrificed to the job. Chapter 3. Why this happens. The silent years. Here is the strange thing about retirement. The thing that doesn't make sense until you really think about it. Most people don't make terrible financial decisions. They don't gamble away their savings in Vegas. They don't buy yachts they can't afford. They don't wake up each morning trying to fail at building a future. Instead, something much quieter happens. Something that feels harmless in the moment but adds up over decades. They delay. They delay learning about money because it feels complicated and boring and there will be time later. They delay saving because right now there are so many things that feel more urgent, more pressing, more immediate. They delay planning because planning for something 40 years away feels like planning for a different person's life. When you are 25 years old, retirement feels completely imaginary. It's not real. It's a concept, not a destination. It's something your parents might think about, not something that has anything to do with you. When you are 35, retirement feels distant. Still far away. Still something you can worry about next year or the year after. There are kids to raise and mortgages to pay and careers to build. Retirement can wait. When you are 45, retirement starts feeling uncomfortable. You realize maybe you should have started earlier. Maybe you should have paid more attention. But it's still far enough away that you can push the feeling down and focus on today. When you are 55, retirement feels urgent. Suddenly the years are flying by and the numbers in your accounts are not growing as fast as you hoped. Suddenly you are trying to catch up, trying to compress decades of saving into a few short years. And when you are 65, retirement feels real. Completely, painfully, unavoidably real. And for too many people, it feels like too little, too late. The biggest enemy of a comfortable retirement is not bad choices. It's not getting rich slowly or losing money in the stock market. The biggest enemy is postponed choices. Decisions that seemed harmless to delay, until suddenly there was no time left to make them. Chapter 4. The Compounding Story. Kid version. Let's go back to two kids with coins. This is a story you have heard before, but it's worth hearing again because it captures something essential about how retirement works. Kidder spends every single coin they get. They see money, they spend money. Candy. Toys. Little treats. Instant gratification every time. And in the moment, Kidder looks happier. They look like they are winning at life. They have the fun stuff right now. Kid B does something different. Kid B takes one coin every day and puts it in a jar. Just one coin. It doesn't feel like much. It doesn't buy anything exciting. It's just a coin disappearing into a jar day after day. At first, Kidder definitely looks like they are having more fun. Candy tastes good. Toys are fun. Instant fun is real fun. Kid B looks boring. Kid B looks like they are missing out. Kid B looks like they don't know how to enjoy life. But here is what happens after years go by. After hundreds and hundreds of days. Kid B looks at their jar, and the jar has become many jars. And the jars are full. And Kid B now has options. Options to buy bigger things. Options to help friends. Options to take breaks and rest. Options that Kidder simply does not have. Kidder has memories. Great memories, probably. Fun memories. But memories don't pay for things later. Memories don't give you options when life gets hard. Memories don't protect you when you are 65 and need to survive. Both memories and options matter in life. You need both. But only one of them buys you freedom later. Only one of them becomes the tree you sit under when you are old. That is retirement math in its simplest form. Small choices repeated over time create either options or limitations. And by the time you realize which one you have been building, it's usually too late to switch. Chapter 5. The 5 Silent Retirement Killers. Let's talk about the patterns, the quiet habits, the invisible forces that slowly shrink future wealth. These are not dramatic villains. They are not obvious mistakes. They are just patterns that feel normal but quietly steal your future. Number 1. Not starting early enough. Time is the strongest multiplier of money that exists. It is more powerful than any investment strategy, any hot stock tip, any lucky break. Time lets money grow and grow and grow. Missing the early years of saving is like planting a tree decades late and then wondering why you don't have shade when you need it. You can never get those early years back. The time you don't use disappears forever. Number 2. Lifestyle expansion. As income rises over a career, spending has a nasty habit of rising right along with it. Sometimes even faster. You earn more, but you feel exactly the same because you are spending everything you earn. The raise that could have built your future instead buys a slightly nicer car, a slightly bigger house, a slightly more expensive vacation. Your lifestyle expands to fill every dollar available, leaving nothing for later. Number 3. Pausing contributions. Life happens. Kids arrive. Houses need repairs. Stress piles up. And during those busy, expensive years, it's easy to pause your retirement saving. Just for a while. Just until things settle down. But those pauses steal something irreplaceable. They steal compound growth. They steal the momentum that makes saving easier over time. And too often, a short pause becomes a permanent pause. Number 4. Breaking the piggy bank early. Cashing out retirement savings before retirement feels like a small decision in the moment. You need money for something important, something urgent, and there it is sitting in an account. Taking it out feels like the obvious solution. But that money, taken out early, never gets to grow. It never gets to compound. It never gets to become the tree that shades you later. And the taxes and penalties make it even worse. A small withdrawal today can mean a huge loss decades from now. Number 5. Playing too safe. This one is tricky because it sounds responsible. Keeping money in cash, in savings accounts, in places where it can't lose value feels safe. But money that sits still loses the race against inflation. It loses the race against time. Playing too safe means your money doesn't grow enough to keep up with rising costs. And over decades, that safety becomes its own kind of risk. None of these 5 killers feel dramatic when they are happening. They feel normal. They feel like reasonable responses to reasonable situations. But together, over time, they shape the entire future. They determine whether you arrive at retirement with options or with anxiety. Chapter 6. The psychology of I'll start later. Humans have a strange quirk in how we think about time. We are terrible at caring about future versions of ourselves. Your future self, the person you will be in 20 or 30 or 40 years, feels like a stranger. They feel disconnected from who you are today. They are not real the way your current self is real. So when you face a choice between something comfortable today and something good for that stranger in the future, today almost always wins. Today's comfort feels certain. Today's pleasure feels real. The future stranger's needs feel abstract and distant. But here is the twist that changes everything. One day, without warning, you become that stranger. Time moves forward whether you are ready or not. And one day you wake up and you are the person your past self was supposed to protect. And you inherit every single decision they made. Every choice to save, every choice to spend, every choice to delay, every choice to ignore. Retirement is essentially the moment you finally meet your future self face to face. And in that meeting, you discover whether they protected you all those years or whether they ignored you completely. You discover whether they built you a comfortable place to land or whether they left you to figure it out alone with whatever is left. Chapter 7. The real difference between comfortable retirement and stressed retirement. Here is something surprising. The difference between a comfortable retirement and a stressed retirement is not income. It is not how much money someone earned during their working years. 2 people can earn exactly the same amount over exactly the same number of years and end up in completely different realities at the end. One builds margin into their life. They spend less than they earn. They save consistently. They let time work for them. They arrive at retirement with options and freedom and peace. The other builds lifestyle. They spend everything they earn and a little bit more. Their lifestyle expands to match their income. They arrive at retirement with obligations and debt and stress. One builds options over time. The ability to say no, to choose, to rest, to help others. The other builds obligations. Payments that must be made, regardless of whether they can afford them. Retirement, in the end, is much less about how much you earned over your lifetime and much more about how much you kept. How much you protected. How much you let grow while you were busy living your life. Chapter 8. The life game metaphor. Imagine your entire life is a video game with invisible stats running in the background the whole time. You can't see them easily, but they are there, determining everything about your experience. You have a health stat, an energy stat, a relationship stat, a money stat. Most people focus all their attention on the visible rewards in the game. They chase the houses, the cars, the things that everyone can see. They collect visible trophies and assume that means they are winning. But here is what they miss. Money's most important stat is not visible at all. Money's real stat is optional choices. The ability to say no to stress. The ability to rest when your body needs rest. The ability to help family members who are struggling. The ability to change direction when your current path isn't working anymore. Wealth is not stuff. Wealth is not things you can touch and show to neighbors. Wealth is flexibility. Wealth is the space between what you have and what you need. Wealth is the cushion that turns problems into inconveniences. Wealth is the thing that lets you sleep at night. Chapter 9. The Daily Decision Loop. Here is something that sounds obvious but is incredibly easy to forget. Retirement is not built in one big moment. It is not created by one brilliant investment or one lucky break or 1 year of intense saving. Retirement is built daily, in small decisions that barely feel like decisions at all. Coffee bought instead of coffee made at home. Upgrade chosen instead of repair that would have worked fine. Saving postponed until next month instead of automated today. Spending driven by emotion instead of intention. No single one of these decisions changes your life. No single coffee purchase ruins your retirement. No single upgrade destroys your future. But repeated decisions, thousands of them over decades, write your entire story. Your retirement is not created by one big moment. It is created by thousands of tiny moments, stacked on top of each other, year after year after year. And by the time you see the final result, it is too late to go back and change any of them. Chapter 10. The good news. Here is the hopeful part. The part that makes all of this worth talking about. The math works forward, building your future slowly over time. But the math also works backward. It works in reverse. Small changes today, even starting late, even starting with very little, shift the entire future. Saving a little more than you saved last month. Starting later than you wish you had started, but starting anyway. Automating your behavior so you don't have to rely on motivation that comes and goes. Making one small adjustment that sticks. You do not need perfection to retire comfortably. You do not need to be a financial genius. You do not need to find the perfect investment or time the market perfectly. You need direction. You need to be moving in the right direction more often than you are moving in the wrong direction. And you need time, as much time as you have left, to let that direction add up. Chapter 11. What actually works? People who retire comfortably, the ones who arrive at 65 with peace instead of panic, often share simple patterns. Nothing magical. Nothing complicated. Just habits repeated consistently over time. Automation instead of intention. They set up saving to happen automatically so they never have to decide, never have to think about it, never have to find the willpower. The system does the work. Consistency instead of intensity. They save steadily over decades instead of trying to catch up in big bursts that never quite happen. Slow and steady wins the race because slow and steady actually finishes. Patience instead of timing. They don't try to predict the market or time their investments perfectly. They just stay invested and let time do the heavy lifting. Low debt entering retirement. They arrive with minimal obligation so their savings can stretch further. They are not making payments to the past while trying to fund the future. Awareness of healthcare costs. They understand that getting older comes with medical expenses and they plan for it instead of pretending it won't happen. Lifestyle defined before income grows. They decide what enough looks like before they have more money to spend. They define their version of enough and stick to it even as income rises. Nothing magical. Nothing requiring special talent or luck. Just repeated habits that add up over time. Kid analogy one more time. Imagine planting seeds. Some seeds grow slowly. You cannot see them growing day by day. You water them daily, even when nothing seems to be happening above the surface. You keep watering because you trust the process. And then years later, you sit in the shade of trees you barely remember planting. You enjoy the cool shade and you barely remember all those days of watering when nothing seemed to be happening. Retirement is sitting under trees you planted decades ago. Trees you watered when nobody was watching. Trees you tended when the shade felt impossibly far away. Chapter 12. The Identity Shift. Here is the deepest truth in this entire video. the biggest change you can make is not financial. It is personal. It is internal. It is about who you believe yourself to be. You stop thinking, I should save. You stop thinking, I really need to start planning. You stop thinking, someday I'll get serious about this. And you start thinking something different. You start thinking, I am someone who protects my future self. I am someone who builds options. I am someone who waters trees I may never sit under. I am someone who cares about the stranger I will become. Identity drives behavior more powerfully than motivation ever will. Motivation fades. Motivation comes and goes with your mood and your energy and your circumstances. But identity, who you believe you are, that stays. That determines what you do when nobody is watching. That determines what you do when it's hard and you don't feel like it. When you become someone who protects their future self, the decisions become easier. They become automatic. They become just what you do. Final message. Here is the truth most people don't say out loud. The truth that is uncomfortable but also liberating. The average retirement outcome is not destiny. It is not predetermined. It is not something that happens to you no matter what you do. The average retirement outcome is default behavior. It is what happens when people follow the path of least resistance. It is what happens when people delay and postpone and hope for the best. It is what happens when people let life happen to them instead of designing the life they want. And default behavior can be changed. You can choose a different path. You can build different habits. You can become a different kind of person, one who protects their future self instead of abandoning them. You don't need to be rich to retire comfortably. You don't need to win the lottery or inherit money or get lucky. You need clarity about what matters. You need consistency in your actions. And you need time, starting right now, today, with whatever time you have left. If this video made you think differently about your future, if it made you feel something about the stranger you will one day become, hit the like button. It helps more people find this video and think about these things too. If you want more videos that explain money in a way families can watch together, that make complex topics simple and emotional and real, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And in the comments, answer one simple question. What is harder for you right now, saving money today when there are so many things you want, or trusting that your future self will somehow figure it all out later even if you don't start now? Because that question, your honest answer to that question, might quietly decide your entire future. See you in the next video.